Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Mind Refinery podcast, provided to you by us, the Mind Refinery, creators of content, aggregators of popular culture, and a place where creatives thrive. I'm your host, Kyle Bodanis. This episode, we are continuing to look at our favorite films of the 2010s with Andrew Lanca's pick, Christopher Nolan's Dunkirk. Before we get started, if you haven't checked out and subscribed to the Mind Refinery YouTube channel, do it. Lots of great content, our culinary series Plated, new episode of This Is Cosplay, short films, podcasts, and don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter for all your Mind Refinery news. And now, without further ado, here's the show. Alright guys, here today to discuss Andrew Lanca's favorite film of the 2010s is Mind Refinery Creatives, the aforementioned Andrew Lanca,
Hey.
Boyan Nedick Technical,
Heyo.
and John Thomas Neal.
Hello.
All right, guys. First of all, it was a pleasure watching this movie. I believe we all did see this movie together at one point.
Yes, I think I saw it.
Yes, we
At
all
least the
went.
three
I
of us. I'm
saw
not
it.
sure if Lance.
Did we smoke?
I don't think I saw it with you guys. I saw it in 70 mil, and then I saw it in IMAX.
No, you
afterwards.
saw it with
We saw it
me
in
a
70
second
yeah.
time because you
In
were
IMAX.
weeping beside me.
That's just every movie.
I
though.
know, but I cried. I can't. I'm not gonna talk shit. I weep like a bitch. Especially when you're raised by an English father who like it's like everything's Dunkirk. The British love to celebrate their defeats. It's love. It's amazing. So guys, let's talk about Dunkirk. Pleasure to watch this movie. Fantastic. Great filmmaker, great cinematographer. We're gonna get into it. Andrew Lanca, why don't you tell us why you loved this film?
Aside from how it's just so just technically perfect in every way, and like there's the acting and the pacing and just how everything is built on suspense, whatever, to like throw all that out the window, it's a good fucking flick. Like, I just watched it, like it's just so watchable. It's what, an hour and 40 minutes, and it's just so tight. Like, it just flows. You watch it and you're just like, wow, it's done. Like, it just goes by so fast. Just overall, it's just such an enjoyable film to watch. I don't know. I just had no other viewing experience like that over the last 10 years that I had for that movie. So just overall, favorite movie of the last 10 years. And it was a hard choice. Honestly, there was so much. And I kind of even thought, is this my favorite movie of the decade? And then watching it again the other night, I was like, yup.
Just to interject, we are going to actually have an episode that coincides with these where we're going to look at our honorable mentions, because as Lance has just said, it is difficult to kind of choose these things. So we're going to have a little what our thought process was going into it. John, you were about to say something.
Yeah, no, this is like thrilling, adrenaline-fueled filmmaking at maybe its very best that it's ever been with Dunkirk. It's just it's a ride. Like 1917, this year is a ride. This movie is a ride, and it's an awesome ride. That would be my first reaction.
If you haven't seen our episode reviewing 1917, please do so.
Yeah, with the exception of 1917, there hasn't, and obviously it wasn't out when this was. There hasn't been as good a war movie since Saving Private Ryan as Dunkirk.
So let's talk about favorite scenes and memorable sequences, guys. What are we thinking here?
And anything with a plane.
Anything with a plane.
Anything with a plane.
Anything
Yep,
with a plane.
yep,
Yeah.
Give me more of those actual real
The Tom Hardy
Spitfires.
scenes are fantastic. And like, yeah, and just like them actually recording the sound of the machine gun from a strip.
Oh, yeah.
So like and the engine, you like it's that the sound design is my favorite part of the whole movie, which is the movie's fantastic. But just like you hearing that like pounding, the Tom Hardy
The Stukas, the dive bombing, just iconic.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And like the part where he is looking at his fuel gauge and then looking at the plane the bomber coming back around to hit to do a second run on the struggling sailors,
And he knows what he has to do.
he's like, I gotta do it, and he does it, and you're like, hero,
Absolutely.
hero, this guy.
Also, kind of hard to translate the concept of I have a reserve tank, a real tank. I have this much time. I can't even read it. You have to give all that information to the audience to understand how big of a choice he made to be like, okay, I'm gonna go to reserve. I'm not gonna get home. I'm a POW now if I even survive this.
Because his tank runs out, and then you see the engine cut, and then him go into the reserve.
He flips it to the reserve.
Yeah.
The
it's
other
Not to
thing-
mention, he's also guessing the whole time based on like writing on with the chalk because he lost early on. It got shot up the gauge.
What I was going to say is think about all those different elements, and so all that stuff happening in the plane aside, all the stuff on the ground, all the stuff in the water, all the stuff back in the air, and how they're cutting between all those different obstacles that are simultaneously happening,
Just
and
building
still
tension. It's all
still
building
have it all
tension.
make sense, and to be able to understand it all is just
And I love when the sailors are watching him do it. Like, remember the other crashed pilot who's then on the boat, watching him go try to intercept the bomber.
Yeah.
And then there's that, like, and then when he brings it down, and then he brings down the Stuka as well on the way, because there's the dive bomber, and then he comes in.
He has zero fuel.
Yeah,
and
he's
he
gliding
takes on
at
a
that point.
Stuka.
Yeah, he's gliding.
Before, that's
So,
brilliant.
and when you see them cheering when they see him drop the plane, you know,
What a moment.
it's like you see that idea of shared, you know, experience, and like the battle he's doing up there is the same we're doing down here. And sometimes with the war effort, you know, when you in war movies, they portray some of the have to worry about yourself situations as well, you know. Like when the guy goes into the grenadier lines, like grenadiers might like make sure he gets, you know what I mean? But then you see that like we're together, this is it, and we're all trying to do the same thing. We're all trying to get home. And that is the one big thing, this idea of like, you know, Englishness, the oneness.
Speaking of
the, like, this-
Englishness, do you think when they're landing on the beach, that's peak British queuing?
Yeah. Yeah. Kenneth Branagh saying with some disdain that he's staying for the French at the end. He's like, but like, and they won't let the French on. I'm like, come on,
400,000 people on the beaches.
I'm like,
perfect
but
lines.
yeah. So yes, these lines are all right. Line not looking too good there. You want to straighten out that line? We're not from. Where you from? Brixton?
yeah.
I was watching that. I was thinking the whole time, you know, if this was American, these were Americans on the beach, they would have been like digging emplacements and trying to like, you know, get ready for anything. But the British are we're
Reading
just gonna
comic
sit
books and we
here
got shit to do.
calmly, not say a fucking word while everything's closing in around us. So British.
Yeah.
It was like peak British, like stiff upper lip.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It was like the stiff upper lip, like stoic, like
Yeah.
I mean, like carry on personified.
Yeah. We need him back.
Was that
We
movie.
need him
Yeah.
back. We have another battle.
With the
to fight.
Battle of Britain and the bombing, the Dunkirk moment is in the British sort of culture and persona. That is one of those stiff upper lip moments in their history and in their DNA.
Yeah. And if you think, and then obviously with with the Churchills speech after about, about the miracle at Dunkirk, just this whole idea of like, if you think this is going to be a walk that you're just going to go through and then you'll take the island next, that will not be happening. We're going to get there, and it's going to be to take it will be your undoing. Like, I think Dunkirk is also like the beginning of the modern age for the British, because at that point the empire is receding, their territorial holdings are being taken by the Japanese, and they're beginning to erode. But it's like, if you think it's over, you're
Well, it's also this great empire that now just in their home they're now under threat, and they feel that threat is real. Whereas before they're like, we own the world, motherfuckers.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, oh, we can't even defend our own.
The war's on their
selves.
doorstep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also there's this like, well, this has happened before. We know it too, because obviously you have the Spanish Armada invasion. You know what I mean? Like, they've been for their backs against
dire situations.
Yeah, and
before,
it's really good. I really like even the stuff with Harry Styles where they're like trying to. It just shows like this kind of the senseless, like just trying to like get back, and everyone being disjointed, and like
and it's
this
right
is,
there. You can see on a good day, you can see England, and they
Crossing
can't
this
get
channel,
away.
Yeah, and these guys are trying to get home, and when they're trapped in the boat, and the guys start doing target practice on when they do so, they're doing the target practice on the boat, and just this idea like of them trying, just the desperation of like people trying to get back to where they are and survive. I mean, when they come home, I love the parts when they come home, and they're like, and it's the blind man where he's like touching their face,
Look me in the face.
and he's like, all I did was survive. And he's like, that's good enough.
Yeah.
And like when
And
they
these
get
are-
home and people are cheering, they're like, we're glad you're
yeah.
back. We need you. They're handing them beers
They
to
were
the
like,
train and
and
stuff.
they were like all embarrassed and thinking
Yeah,
that
and
they
these are
failed.
kids coming back though, so they're probably taking it definitely as a defeat, definitely a lot harder because they're all young men. But like the old people, there are like, no, you survived, you came back. That's all you needed.
Yeah,
to do.
we're happy.
You know, it's not your mistake. That's some general's military mistake. You know, to go so arrogantly into France and think that they
So
can stop
heavy.
the blitzkrieg.
When the boats arrive,
Oh my god!
not a dry eye.
Home.
Not a dry. When he says home,
Oh,
not a dry eye. Lance is beside me weeping. I'm weeping.
oh, I was losing
I'm
it watching
crying.
it. Watching.
Meanwhile,
it the other night.
the captains on
God.
those boats are like the
Yeah.
most serious stern men. They're like, they know they're doing the badass thing, and yeah, they're
What
they're
the
there.
civilian
Yeah, but
captains?
the character wise, like, yeah, I mean, even with that happened, that would have been an emotional moment. No, they're Brits. that doesn't exist.
On the topic of scenes I liked as well, the the very opening of the movie up until the end of the first bombing, that whole where he's like running
the
from
streets?
the shooters and then onto the
It's-
beach.
You don't see a German in this
It's-
movie
no.
until other than a plane
Yeah.
until the very
Right
end,
at the very end
when they get
I,
Tom
I
Hardy.
like that
and
opening.
the like background.
I love that
autofocus,
opening.
They're not.
yeah.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I gotta fault this movie for, there's a couple things, but one of them is just a disservice to the French. Honestly, like
Yes.
I know the French get a lot of flack, for surrender monkeys and all that stuff that's said about them and surrendering all the time. But not to mention their resistance fought extremely hard during that rest of that war. But in that moment, they were the reason why the Brits survived. They had
held the
nothing to
back line.
defend with, nothing
Yeah.
serious,
Yeah.
but they held on for a long
They
time.
held the rear of the
for
of the,
for the benefit of the British, that maybe the British will help them later on in the war, and they could have done the surrender thing and just walked away.
Yeah.
But
Also,
no.
people underestimate like the speed with which the German military went.
Yeah.
Like they were.
They
it's
do
the-
cover that though, but not the speed. There was a great speed, but they cover why the Germans gave them time. And there's a lot of
But they
reasons
don't
why.
talk about
I'm
how he
more,
wanted
I'm more
the
like
prestige.
talking about like the disservice to the French. Like they just gave up. Like they
Right,
gave
right,
up
right.
when in actuality, like good luck on land. Like the British are across the water. Like there's a stop to that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like for a preparation. But the
Yeah.
French, once that, because you have to remember, after like when they landed in D-Day, 1944, they hit the beach, and then they were in Berlin in a year.
Mhm.
Right, so like there's not a lot of area once
Yeah.
they start breaking out, and I think that's a really good point, and that's why like at the end he wants to stay for the French, because they obviously they were the rear guard of that expeditionary
The
force.
French were one of the few countries that really prepared for World War II. In a way, expecting Germany to, they saw the radicalization of Germany, and they spent 20 years building
Maginot
the
Line.
Maginot Line,
Yeah.
which would have done a great job in the previous war, but
Yeah.
you know what I mean. You just need, now you have tanks that can go anywhere,
And meth.
and they found the Germans went through the one forest that
They never
that
thought
the
there'd be an
French
Ardennes
never- yeah,
offensive.
exactly. So it's the film was a disservice to them, I think, and it's just
They did show at the beginning when he's like running through the streets and they're like shooting at him. He's like
That's about it.
Anglais, Anglais,
Yeah.
and then they're like, oh, like get out of here,
Yeah.
and they like shove him off. I'm just saying. I'm not saying I agree it was a disservice, but I'm just saying there was that one.
now, and it's not even just like historically that's a disservice, but like I think in a film you could have even upped the stakes a little bit more if you had a character or a scene that showed what the French were facing up against.
And because and that's the idea about understanding the commonality between everyone, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, although it was a British movie, it kind of really expands like the stakes, understanding that, because the French expedition, like they're forcing you to come over too, because they will invade again. Like all those, you need everyone.
Can I add a caveat to that though?
Yeah.
The one French officer posing as a Brit to escape.
Yeah.
That's kind of a little bit sort of hinting at their strife as well.
No,
But
it's
it doesn't represent them well.
I'm
though.
not saying that
It
I'm
makes them
just
look like
I'm
a
just throwing
coward.
that out there
Yeah,
just because
exactly.
that
Yeah.
is in there, and I
Yeah.
just wanted to point
And
that
the
out.
other scene where when they try and go on that causeway or whatever it is where the boats go,
Anglais, salut.
and they're pushing up, those French
Yeah.
are trying to get on the boats and they're getting pushed aside. It also, like, that's again, it makes them look bad. I mean,
But
obviously
at least he's calling attention to it though. And
Yeah, because
like,
they talk about
that's the
like Winston Churchill saying, we're allies,
Mhm.
but then over here it's like get British first because we need them to fight, which kind of like the French. I mean, there's a lot of other people who participated in the Battle of Britain who were ready. There's French pilots. There was Polish
Polish
pilots,
pilots were some of
right?
the best,
And
in
they
the
were
war,
also
yeah.
in preparation for the landing,
Mhm.
because let's be real, that's the staging ground. That's where any offense against Europe at that point is going to be staged from England. I want to move on though, guys. I was actually guys. Christopher Nolan. Could anybody else have made this movie?
Not this way.
I
Not
could
the
see
same
Ridley
way,
Scott.
with
Ridley Scott could make this movie.
the pacing and how the three storylines line up in different ways. I feel like that's like quintessential Nolan right there.
I mean, yeah.
I'm not saying anybody else couldn't do it, but I'm just saying he can do it in a masterful way.
Playing with time is definitely his thing.
Yeah.
Like he does. That's been his thing since Memento, maybe before that. And he does a great job with that. I don't see anybody that can do it as well, but I think as representing the story of Dunkirk in an interesting way, I think Ridley Scott could have also done that.
I also, my thing with why Nolan is probably the only one who could have done this is because I think not playing around with time, and he even said as much in interviews, like not playing around with the time, this movie isn't as interesting because with Dunkirk, there's a lot of waiting on the beach for. I mean, I'm not saying that there isn't things happening. It's just they were stranded on a beach.
Yeah, and they're stranded on a beach. The stakes are really high on
Yes.
that beach, but you can't translate that in film if that's all you ever see.
Also
right?
tension.
Yeah.
Because we talked about in the 1917 podcast that the shooting style that really racked up the tension. It's the edit, and we talked about the cutting style of it, and
Exactly.
the way
They do it in completely different ways, but both effectively.
Yeah.
Like this one, everything is like everything is paced the way it's paced and structured the way it's paced is to heighten tension and suspense, and like that's where I think it's like masterful storytelling. Like he's always giving you just enough information, and like he's like playing his cards slowly throughout the movie, and he's doing that over 3 different timelines that are all 3 different lengths of time.
So,
Yeah.
like if Ridley Scott, for example, as you say, had made this movie, I don't think it would have done anything with time. Really, it probably would have been about like
More
character.
linear.
It would have been more
you
linear.
would have had to
type.
get.
It would have been
into
a
a
totally
character.
different way of
there
telling
would have
the
been
story.
a love story in there, like
But,
some
yeah.
nurse on the
Don't
boat.
make him.
but
Don't
Winston
make him.
Churchill's
Like,
a
no,
replicant.
he
It
didn't make
would've-
Pearl Harbor.
it would've
He made
just-
Gladiator.
it-
Winston Churchill's a replicant.
It would have just been more of a sort of linear sort of story in that sense. I feel
Yeah,
like if someone like
No,
him
no, I
had
could
made
see
It
it,
would
that.
have focused on one character,
Yeah,
and it would have
yeah.
been his perception of the story through
Right.
that.
I mean, that
character.
could have still
While-
been an interesting story.
Yeah, but that's not his story.
And
the
anyway,
tension,
not
the tension of and what it did was it drove home the tension of the moment. If this expeditionary force is destroyed, we have no shield against them if they decide to invade.
yeah.
I think one of the things that stood out to me where they maybe dropped the ball a little bit on tension, it might have been also because of Christopher. I don't know the reasons, but I know he really likes practical effects, and there were VFX and practical effects in this. But it just stood out to me way too often that whenever there's a shot of a beach and you're looking down the beach, 400,000 men are supposed to be in the beach. It looks like 2,000. And it's
Like the minor final Christmas party.
It is trivial for the budget that they had to make a crowd copy.
Yeah, good point. Good point.
That's
Now
a good point because you can
Think about when
there to do that well.
you've been to like
Yeah.
a baseball game at Sky Dome. That's 56,000 people.
Yeah,
That's a lot
multiply
of people.
that by like 8.
By
No, that's a
400,000.
really good point.
That's a really good
Honestly,
point.
I didn't even think of that.
Yeah.
I know how many people were supposed to be there. I don't know. Maybe I guess
that would've-
they just chose from a
I just-
visual
I
standpoint
don't know.
to
It was,
just
the stakes would have gone so much higher.
I
Like
agree.
that number
Visually,
is
visual
massive.
tension, like especially when you see planes attacking the beach. Like if you see the pictures from Dunkirk, it's like the beach is densely
Yeah,
packed.
it's a
packed.
German pilot's fucking dream. You
Yeah.
can't miss.
Yeah. Just drop
Especially when they
wherever.
stand in lines. You just
Yeah. Well organized, especially when they drop in well organized British lines. That's why the Americans are notorious to kill, are difficult to kill on a beach.
Yeah.
They're just
can't get
chilling.
them to stand in
You're
line.
not queuing.
I can't.
I definitely feel like this is Nolan's best film. Like
That leads into the
for-
question: is this his
for
magnum
me,
opus? Yeah.
Like for me, it's his best movie.
I agree.
I enjoyed it from beginning to end, and I couldn't wait to see it again when it was over, especially in IMAX.
Yeah,
It was-
I
it
saw it.
was
I saw it 70 mil
A
first,
thrill.
and it was great in 70 mil.
Yeah.
But the sound at Varsity was
Oh,
lacking. I wanted to
yeah.
feel.
Mm.
I wanted to feel
This
that
is
in
a
my
problem.
chest.
The sound though. Sorry, finish your point. But I
Well,
wanna
that's
come
all I was
back
gonna
to
say. I like as soon as I saw it, I'm like, that was great. But now I need to see it in IMAX because I want to feel it in my chest.
Yeah.
Like I want to feel those machine guns like thudding,
Yeah.
and it was much better in IMAX for the sound. But
Now-
sorry, so
now
what were you
this
saying?
might be my ears, kind of my personal hearing issues sort of thing, but consistently I find I have a problem with the sound with Nolan's films. Interstellar, so friggin' loud.
Was it the part where you could hear Anne Hathaway? That was my big issue.
It was the organs, but yeah.
Sorry.
No, it was so friggin' loud that, and even in Dunkirk, there's just parts that are just the not like unnecessarily in the sound mix, so loud that you can't hear the dialogue. I had to turn on subtitles on parts just to understand what they're saying.
I was wearing
Now
headphones.
it could be me.
I was
No,
wearing
I
headphones,
had
yeah.
like I had like
I think it might
5.1
be you.
surround
Just like
sound.
I can't
I
hear
had-
you. The ship
I
is
had a really
exploding.
good. I have a really good sound system when I was listening to it, and when I in the theater, same thing. Interstellar, same thing.
Really, I've never had a
Inception,
problem with
same
that.
I think it's
personally.
Boyan.
It could be me.
So I don't know
That's
if
what I
it-
said. I
Did you
preceded it
blow
with
out,
it
like,
could
your
be my
low-end
hearing.
hearing or something like that.
You're like, I couldn't hear it out
dude,
of my right ear.
I spent my formative years with a fucking headphones in my ears and blasting at the max volume. So I definitely
Blasting
could
like
have.
infected mushroom.
I
and shit.
definitely could have. I don't know what that is.
Atreyu.
Also, as an IMAX movie, though,
don't hate on
like how much of
Atreyu,
this was
first
shot in
of all.
IMAX did we say before this, roughly?
I literally watched the making of
Yeah.
last night, and I thought they said 70%. You said 90%.
That's what I'm feeling. It felt like it was 90%.
By the way, putting a fucking IMAX camera on a Spitfire is such a boss move.
absolutely
Yeah.
nutty.
Do they have to do a different
Absolutely
body? They had to do a
nutty.
different body for that, for sure.
They probably
Maybe,
made some kind of
probably.
custom mount,
Well,
custom
it
body.
looks massive though. If you look in the behind the scenes stuff, there's still
It's
an
huge.
IMAX
Yeah,
camera
it's
with
huge.
a giant ass body
There's only
and
so
like a
small
giant
you
ass
can make
mag
that camera. Yeah.
that's on a fucking Stuka.
Then again, I mean,
Like-
those planes
love how
also carried
ridiculous it
500-pound bombs, and you know,
Yeah.
so
or
cameras
not a
in a
Stuka,
big.
sorry.
That's
a
true,
fucking
yeah, yeah,
Spitfire.
yeah.
But it's still like a boss move to, because now you're risking like a very old antique plane, and you're risking a camera, an extremely expensive camera.
But like, how sick does that look when they're flying? There's like POV shots of the pilots. Like,
there's
can see,
nothing like it.
You can see the vibration.
It's
It's
the best,
exactly
yeah.
like. I mean, I like what like whatever
It's
you
not
want to
as good
say.
by Red Tails by
Yeah.
by.
No, I was
what's his
gonna
face?
Name one
George Lucas.
movie.
George Lucas.
Well, I was gonna say, like I don't know if you guys
Terrible.
have seen the trailer for the new Top Gun.
Yep.
Which who gives a shit
Oh,
about
God.
Top Gun? But like the fucking shots of like Tom Cruise in a fucking
Yeah, they
like,
look great. Yeah.
like
Yeah.
MiG or whatever.
Yeah.
Like was he what do they fly?
Like an
M16.
Yeah,
is
yeah,
that-
yeah,
yeah.
MiG is Russian,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Anyway,
Traitor.
I'm out to lunch. Commie.
Wow.
Comrade.
Embarrassing.
Anyway, yeah. So just like it's so authentic, like that, like vibration, that like slight vibration, like everything. You can just tell. Oh yeah, that's not CG for a second. Like it's
Yeah.
like you can't fake that. It looked just so authentic.
Do we know what timeline that movie is going to be in?
what
Top
timeline?
Gun? Because I feel like now it'd just be like just a guy steering a drone. That's Top Gun now.
Well, I think
it's a guy piloting.
That's
I
part of
think-
the movie. I
think it's gonna be a part of it. Like he's
Yeah.
old school
Where's
fighter.
your replacement? It's a guy who looks like
Josh.
Boyan with a drone.
What was
Honestly,
that?
I'm
What was
gonna
that
see it.
awful
I'm seeing it
movie?
in
What was that
IMAX.
awful movie with fighter jets, and then there was like an AI drone, and then they have to go. It was just if I think they're gonna do that again.
Yeah. This would be another
don't
place
know.
where one of your
Probably
Top Gun drones would go.
Yeah. Yeah, they should have had drones in World War II.
Anyway, I'm gonna see it in IMAX. Who's coming with
Obviously
me?
gonna go.
Who's coming with
Top
me?
Gun.
I'll go,
Yeah.
but we got to make sure we don't make the same mistake from 1917.
Yeah,
you can't not smoke for
That
Top
was
Gun.
Only if we
How?
can blast. What's the song called? Danger
yeah,
Zone?
Danger Zone. That better be in the movie or I'm fucking.
No,
wrong
it's
there.
When we're in
definitely-
the
it's in
alley
the trailer.
before, we're
Okay,
gonna have
is it
that
in the
going.
trailer? I don't
I
remember.
think they used part of the theme of it. or
Yeah, they
something.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They
Yeah,
do. But it's
they
like
do
kind of
that.
sad.
Kenny
That's
Loggins, right?
sad.
That's what I was
Kenny
thinking. Kenny
Loggins.
Loggins.
Are they
Kenny
getting?
Loggins?
Are they gonna get fucking somehow Val Kilmer in there? That's what I
Iceman?
want to know.
No.
Yeah.
No, they're not.
Has he been?
No.
It's
I'm
like
saying
in like
no.
a flashback.
Do
Like,
you?
I'm
like
saying
what
no.
would our lives been like?
the flashback should just because
like-
he's so he's so notoriously difficult to work with. The flashback is just his plane getting shot down.
No,
Well,
they'll flash back to
over
that shot of
Kosovo or
him
some
when
shit?
Do you
he
think-
bites Tom Cruise. That's what they'll cut to.
Now, do you think they're gonna play at the homoeroticism of the original, or they're gonna go full like accept it because we're living in in 2020, just make them fully gay?
yeah.
Instead of pretend to be gay.
I'd like to
I
see that.
support it.
Let's just
I
do it.
support
I'm
it.
down
As
with
long-
it.
As long as there's dope ass fucking
I mean, they're Air
fighter
Force,
pilots
Yeah, as long as
Yeah.
there's awesome flights.
in
for
IMAX,
it.
I'm down.
Yeah,
I'm down.
absolutely.
Because the original like teased it,
Oh, yeah.
with the
This'll be over.
volleyball
This'll be over.
and
Yeah.
everything.
Yes.
Just make it full on.
This isn't
Yeah.
the crappy.
It's not the
80s.
80s. It's not
Yeah,
the.
fuck the 80s. People need to be
It's
themselves.
the 20s.
Absolutely, it's the new 20s. Have you guys seen the latest episode of This Is Cosplay? It features Kin Chan, the armorer and run-of-the-mill creative genius from Wampan's Cosplay. You really need to see what this guy does to believe it. The series is put together by the Mind Refinery creative team and is a visually engaging look at identity, community, and passion. If you're a fan of cosplaying, gaming, anime, a comic book lover, or like us, general fans of nerddom, this series is for you. And now, back to the show.
I was just gonna say on the subject of Christopher Nolan again.
No, we're still talking about Top Gun.
Okay, fine.
Oh yeah, is
Continue
that
with
what we're talking
Thank
about?
you for breaking that up.
This is now strictly the
Yeah,
Top
we're
Gun
now reviewing
podcast.
Top Gun.
Yeah.
This movie brought him, I think, to the big boys table as far as like the
movie? He was
Listen,
already at the
and
big
let me
boys table, my
let,
friend.
He is the biggest
Big
boy.
boys
Let me-
table
let-
is difficult to get to in John's house.
let me preface
He
this.
still eats at the kids'
there's
table. He
just-
still
I
eats at
wanted
the kids'
to-
table.
There's
for
post
the
Charles
John's.
Gateway.
You didn't,
Let
let
the
me
kids
finish
take
what I was
it
gonna
over.
say. You didn't let me finish what I was gonna say. Obviously, he's made some. I mean, look at his list, right? But this is the movie I think that solidified him as like one of the great sort of directors of his generation as far as just this story and how he told it. And it's not like a time warp movie or like Interstellar where they're playing with time and science fiction, or even like Inception where it's a stylized thriller that sort of plays with sci-fi elements. This was just a war movie, right? And his ability to sort of tackle the subject matter the way that he tackled it with, and also giving it its sort of due as well in the way that he did. That's what I mean by that. Is just that he took something that wasn't sort of a stylized fictional thing that he came up with and actually went back in time to World War II.
Is this his first certified classic, do you think?
No.
Absolutely not.
No.
What's his first certified classic, do you think? I think he's got so many.
Memento's amazing. Memento's taught in film schools, and obviously we learned it, but it's brilliant. It's really, really good.
Yeah,
and there's
I'd say like honestly, like
his whole
I think Memento's a genius.
His whole thing with time started with
movies,
Memento.
all of his movies, yeah, like Prestige, everything.
I love the Prestige. You know what? He's got so many bangers.
Yeah.
And the only one I can't really deal with too much anymore is Inception.
Yeah.
Honestly,
I loved it when I first saw it.
I like Inception better than Interstellar.
I can't watch
I like
it
it better
again.
than Interstellar, to be honest.
I like it. Oh, I don't really.
so
Those are the two movies I don't
know.
really like that much by him. I don't like Interstellar at all. I like
it. I don't love it.
I don't like the
Interstellar.
ending. I pretty much like the rest of Interstellar.
I like
Anne Hathaway and the ending are the two down points.
I like. I really, really. It's too bad too because I thought in Dark Knight Rises she was compared to how bad Catwoman can be, she was quite good. But yeah, no, I think this is like he's got certified classics. I think this will probably go down as his best. I don't know if he's going to top this. I feel like this is the culmination of what he does.
You don't think 2010's going to do it?
Tenet?
Sorry.
Did you say
Tauntaun?
Ten?
Whatever. Tenant.
Tauntaun?
Jesus. Yes.
Sounds like an anime.
Tintin? It's Tintin.
Yeah, I hate all the side missions in that anime.
Yeah, no, I was just
what?
Tintin by Christopher Nolan.
But yeah, I have issues with Interstellar, and I kind of feel the same way you feel about Inception. Like I saw it once in IMAX, and I'm good.
Watch the South Park about Inception, and it will ruin the movie for you.
But yeah, no, this movie is like the first movie that I've seen of his that I wanted to watch immediately again after I saw it the first time, and then I'll watch it many times.
Did you see it in theater at least twice?
I saw it 3 times in IMAX.
Yeah, I saw it twice, and it was like very
so
close
good.
to each other.
I couldn't help myself. I had to go back for a third dip.
What about
not satisfied.
What about first of all, Hoyt van Hoytema? Did I pronounce that right?
Hoyte van
Hoytema?
Hoyte? It's not Hoyte.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I think it's Hoyt van Hoytema.
Boyan's only of the American
I think it's
cinematographer.
Hoyt van Hoytema.
Cool.
I don't know if we can show that.
American cinematographer, Boyan Spank Mag, right there. Friggin'.
Oh no, it's all stuck together.
It's like too far.
I can just break that over my knee.
I feel like he killed it. Are we missing Wally Feister, or are we just like who?
No.
Wally Feister, who?
I love Wally Feister.
Is this his first movie? Chris Nolan just asked.
No, Interstellar is his
Interstellar
first movie
was,
with
okay.
Nolan.
Wait, this guy or
Well, yeah.
I thought it was brilliant. I thought the use of
Yeah.
like natural light, especially all the way through,
It was incredible.
was outstanding. Just from a logistical standpoint of filming all those scenes in the water, outside, on a beach, etc., etc., etc. I just like how they got like I don't know if like
inside
I'm sure
the
you guys-
ships when they're sinking. Is
inside the
ridiculous.
ships, like the underwater stuff, like whatever. I'm sure you guys have seen with like the IMAX camera body with like the mag is like this
Yeah.
big, and it's like you see these guys like doing like handheld shots with them and shit.
Oh my god.
And it's just like the logistical nightmare behind that. I can't even imagine.
Shout out to the camera assistant that balanced that camera
Exactly.
so it doesn't break the guy's back.
Yeah, the entire camera crew, and like the entire gripping, like just
Oh,
shout
no,
out to the entire crew,
Yeah.
Yeah.
like everybody.
But
Yeah, like it just. I thought he did an amazing job. I personally, I think it's one of the best looking movies, and like the color grade on it is so nice and consistent and not over the top. Like we were talking about Social Network and how I thought it was like a bit over the top in Social Network, and this is not. It's like the color grade is like nice. It's beautiful. It's like I wouldn't say it's understated, but it's not like over the top.
It's like that's what I kind of like about it. Not overstated, not understated. It's like on point. There isn't like this idea of it's not washed out and like the opportunity to try to make it look bleak.
No, it
But-
looks
or not
classic. It looks
oversaturated.
classic.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it,
Yeah.
and it doesn't look. It's not hitting you over the head with it. You know what I mean? It just looks good. And
I
and-
would call it the British color palette. You know,
Yeah.
the gray skies color palette.
yeah, but then
Dull
but,
greens
Yeah, I feel like
and
Lawrence
browns.
of Arabia
Exactly. I was
has
about to say,
like a
very-
time equivalent of this type of like color added to it.
Yeah, and just like the way, like some like the scenes where they're going underwater and like you just see like it's like these like Dutch angles as like
The under the water
water's
parts
coming-
were
like,
so
yeah.
like
what the
I
fuck?
didn't
Like,
know
it's
I
just-
had that fear, but now I know I have fear of
Yeah.
going down in the ship.
it-
man.
it's the
being
perfect-
locked in, going down. That's
dude, it's really
it's
like
the worst.
they really put you there. and
Exactly.
It's terrible.
That's what I was gonna say. It's like the cinematography. I feel like is like the perfect like it gives you these like picturesque like bird's eye shots and like wide shots and like obviously this is like oh like yes they like clearly yeah they used establishing shots and they didn't like no but like they just did such a good job of like having those like just nice serene like picturesque kind of like wide shots and but then also like having you like right in there with the action
Yeah.
and like there's times where you're like you're an observer and there's times where you're a participant in that movie and like that's the whole thing about the movie is I think it really supports it is that there are characters in the movie but like it's not about any one character in the movie like it's about Dunkirk, it's about the event and like that's what it is. It's like you get the event through all these different eyes but you don't have like there are like little mini character arcs but like yeah it's like more about specifically and like, I just think like the cinematography just really supports that.
So I was going to say on
Yeah.
the subject of the cinematography, specifically the IMAX, which took up most of the runtime of the movie,
Yeah.
felt like 90% anyway.
Honestly we
it's
could double check
seamless.
that.
It's seamless.
It's definitely some of the best ever in a major motion picture, like the IMAX work, as far as just how much of it is used and how it helps you put you there because you feel like you're there when you're watching.
It is. Sorry,
especially
I
in
just
IMAX.
checked. It is 70%.
Okay,
That's right. Okay,
sweet.
70% of IMAX is IMAX.
So aside from like that, so I was looking up Hoyt, right? Is that
Hoytema?
right?
Van
And some of his work. So The Fighter, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, Her,
Fantastic.
Interstellar, Spectre, and Dunkirk. And that's in order.
Her.
He did Spectre?
Wow.
So
Her.
when I
That's really nice,
so
yeah.
so when I didn't know that he did Her, like, and they use IMAX a lot in this movie for just close-ups and
Close-ups,
stuff as
yeah.
well. That to me was also amazing how we were able to kind of just have it go from like these big aerial war sequences to just being also in tight with the characters in IMAX, just totally immersive stuff. And like Her especially, even though Her, I believe it was shot on Alexa.
Her
But
is like claustrophobic.
Her is like
almost.
claustrophobic. So he's able to go from doing these big spectacle movies like Interstellar to doing a movie like Her, and no, I didn't even know it was him that was doing Her because it doesn't feel like one of his big spectacle movies at all, obviously. But that's pretty impressive stuff, just from a
That was
list of
Spike
stuff.
Jones, right? Her.
yes, yeah.
Great. That was a great flick.
And that movie
That's
was
actually one that I've only seen once at
beautiful
theaters. I should
movie,
watch
too.
that.
One
again.
of,
Shout
one of
out to Spike
Joaquin
Jones.
Phoenix's best performances too,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He's
beautiful
even
looking movie.
better than Joker. He's getting recognized for Joker, but I think he was better in Her.
Okay, guys. Peak performance in this movie by a stiff ass Brit.
Kenneth
Branagh.
Branagh.
Kenneth
Kenneth
Branagh.
Branagh.
Sorry,
His-
he was the admiral.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
Yeah, that's
home.
what I was
When he's
thinking.
like, "What do you see?" and he says, "Home." I knew it was coming. I know it's like I'm getting chills thinking about it now. Like I know it's coming. I'm like, "Fucking don't do it to me, Kenneth. Don't do it to me, Macbeth."
It was bad.
And
It was.
fucking-
It was
so good.
not a
he
dry.
fucking drops it, and I like every time. It's just like, and like I feel like up until that point, the score again, Hans Zimmer. I know this is the
boy.
Hans Zimmer and Roger Deakins podcast.
It's okay.
slash top.
We are
Gun.
definitely gonna get into this.
Change
Okay,
that.
so I'll just say in that one part
Yeah.
with Kenneth Branagh and like the strings swell. I believe for the first time in that movie because it's like there's like this like little like staccato kind of like
It's very tense.
for the whole movie. And that's
Yeah.
like the first time that you're allowed this like reprieve with the string swelling, and like that moment for me is like that is the movie. And I don't like there's that shot of him and he like turns around like
Sorry,
Brilliant.
the father on the boat. Who's
Mark Rylance.
He for me he was
He is
incredible.
so good.
He was
And
really good.
His perform. That's one thing that stuck out in
Yeah.
performances
Yeah.
in this one. How good he was.
Yeah, Bridge of Spies. Shout out for the Academy Award for that movie for best supporting actor.
incredible.
is Cillian Murphy he's British, right?
He's
I thought he had one of the most interesting reverse arcs,
Yeah.
if you want to call it. I don't know how you, like, he has this like story arc where like when you first see him.
He's in the Nolan tool shed now.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
great. It's a
yeah.
great. Cillian Murphy's good to
It's a
have.
great
So
goddamn
yeah, so he
fucking
has
movie.
so you start off with him where he's like, from he's suffering from quote shell shock, which we now know is PTSD. And you see him and he doesn't want to go back, and he's like not essentially demanding that they don't go back to Dunkirk. And then you see him later on in the movie before the attack that takes out his boat, and he's like a very like proper like British.
When they intercut between that, it's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, but like so like that's what I was saying, like how like you have like everything is based on like building suspense. Like you have that, and then you have like the like not the payoff, but you have like the precursor to that like way later in the movie, and you see him as like what was it? He was like an officer, British officer.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah. So so you see him like he's like taking command. He's like being this like stiff British upper lip, like come on boys, carry on. And then you see him that like, and then you realize that he's the guy that you've seen fucking with the wild eyes, cowering in the corner of the boat. So I thought that was
And-
he played both aspects of that.
And when
role
he's asking
brilliantly.
if the guy, if is it the kid's name is George,
yeah.
if he's okay, and
Yeah.
when after like the scuffle, and then he ends up falling.
Well, then he
So I
also
never
at the
understood
end
that-
he also looks at the body as it's getting taken off the boat and just walks away. So like, I don't know. We never get any kind
Yeah,
of
I
closure
think
of
I
where
don't know.
he is at.
I
I also
always thought-
didn't get like I felt like that. Just
The father's
I
on
didn't
it
get
too, where he's just like he's not himself, and he may never be again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Well, because he knows he has a son in the army. But I was gonna just say quickly with George falling, I always felt that was such a he falls down the stairs and then he's like dead.
Well, he hit his head on something. I mean, I get like
I know,
that's
I wish they
it's
just-
realistic that if you fall and hit your head on something, you could
I
definitely
just
die
wish
like
they
that. I
kind of
just
showed
didn't.
him like hit his. I don't know.
Listen,
I don't think
he
he would
got-
have solved it.
he
I
got
just
hit
felt
really
like the
hard.
whole thing was I didn't understand why he needed to die in that. Like
to show that there's
he
casualties at every
wanted to
level
be a
kind of thing.
hero, I guess, and that's why he or something. Like
kinda see
that
it
as there were
that was
other
his thing when he
casualties.
came
That's
on.
what it is. I mean, that part really got me at the end, where when they open the newspaper and the guy
Oh.
sees
Yeah.
hero at Dunkirk after like he wanted to do because he
17-year-old.
hasn't
Yeah.
done anything in his life. I think that was really cool. I think the idea is that what you were saying, the casualties, and that
That's what I think
when
it is.
with
The casualties. That's like the casualties are hitting home now.
yeah,
they're not just
and they're going
soldiers.
and they will continue.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I think that's.
And I thought that I actually did enjoy that part of it. And it really kind of threads it back home where now we're starting, and as soon as those pleasure crafts start coming across the channel to pick up these people, the British people begin absorbing the war effort. You know what I
Yes,
mean? It
yes.
becomes things where
Becomes real.
where you
Well, they've
start to
already
see
been-
total war in general, where it occupies everything in a society.
the Germans were already bombing London at that time,
No.
right?
Yeah.
No,
Well,
they-
what happened was
I
with the
think it
Germans was
they,
they
they
originally.
and the
they-
English bombed Berlin at that. By
Well, what
that
happened
point.
was the
I'm pretty
the
sure.
original
War,
bombing
maybe.
campaign,
I'm
the
pretty
original
sure.
bombing campaign for against the Allies. So they were initially bombing airfields because they needed to choke them off
Yeah.
so that they couldn't, and that's where the whole Battle of Britain thing. What happened was the Allies started bombing Berlin.
Yeah.
Out of that, and that coaxed Hitler into changing their bombing strategy to bombing London.
Civilian.
So during the Blitzkrieg, there was like an enormous amount of like bombings of the cities, but what that did was it gave the airfields enough time to like recover, and also it turned the eye away from planes.
Yeah.
And
I heard something where they were able to build like they would have airfields bombed, and like by like in the morning and like by lunchtime they'd be like flying planes off them again.
it's the whole war
Yeah.
effort.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and like
Also,
that's
a lot
crazy.
of those planes were built to be able to land on
In the
fairly
middle.
rough ground.
Well, you see the plane land.
yeah.
You see the Spitfire land on the beach.
The
so.
beach, yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
The ending, by the way, I love the ending.
Oh
of this
my
movie.
God, fucking Tom Hardy.
love
First
it.
of all, what an unbelievable fucking actor Tom Hardy is.
Barely
I don't-
says a word, and it's fantastic.
I mean, yeah, like is every movie
Acting,
his fucking face covered up by something? I swear. But like he's
I enjoy his lack of vanity.
Yeah,
I
but like even in like I don't know if you guys seen Venom?
Yeah.
No.
Bits.
Like Venom is not a good movie, but it's fun. But like he's so good in it.
Yeah, he's
like
good.
he's
He's
so
generally
good.
pretty good.
Yeah,
That's what happens when you
it's-
put a super, super good actor in a super, super bad movie.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're like, I want him to be in a good Venom movie now.
Yeah.
Because he's good. You know what I mean? And he's over the top with it.
Seeing him in that mask in the first shot when he's flying kind of took me out of it for like a second, because I'm like, I'm just expecting a Bane voice.
Of course.
He just says it like that.
Yeah. I was born in a Spitfire. I was born in the Air Force.
Oh
Molded by it.
And I love how like
Fortis
the
later.
RAF, like being in the RAF, like the Royal Air Force, was just like so prestigious that man's like they're fucking wearing suits and they're flying planes. Like,
Dressed to impress.
I love it.
Yeah, that's so amazing.
I'm here to fulfill His Majesty's destiny.
Well, it also that's also where partially. I mean, I think all pilots were officers at some level, and that's also partially where the sort of the general troops' disdain for pilots. Like, they save
like
us when they come, but like
At the end of the
Private
movie-
Smith ain't flying no sorties.
Yeah.
It's like at the end of the movie when they're all getting on the trains, the one guy goes, "Where the hell were you?"
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
and he walks by.
Well, and then the
One
other
of
the other guy says, "Well, the other lads
They know where you
were." Like,
Yeah,
it's. I mean,
beautiful.
The one. I mean,
That whole ending sequence is
I appreciate.
beautiful.
I like in the
It's
movie.
nice.
It makes a lot of sense. It works really well. It's crafted really well. That he's the only one that makes it there. But realistically, they had air cover and they had plenty of it.
Okay, so who's the head of the German Air Force? What was his name? I can't remember.
Hermann Goering.
Yeah, Goring. So he
Boy, and I
he
just shake our
wanted
heads with disdain.
he wanted to, it was him who
Fuck
so
Nazis.
he wanted to like eliminate the English and British, like he wanted like the prestige of like he wanted the Air Force to, like the German Air Force to,
Also,
like,
strategically, because you have to remember, they have to do the channel crossing.
Yeah.
So the only ways to safely do that, they have to pull the Navy out, get the Navy out of the water, because that's the shield of it. That's England's shield, right? And the Air Force.
so is it
So
true?
they can't even consider a landing without like that safety.
Yeah. So what I heard was they didn't push on the ground because, well, I mean, the French were protecting, but like he wanted like the prestige of like wiping out like the armies.
No, it
with
was
the Air
actually.
Force.
I believe it was Hitler's call to not push them out.
Well, I
There
thought
there
they
was
wanted to
there was a
eliminate
call
with the
to
Air
like
Force.
it's there's several different like takes
Yeah.
historically, several different takes of why
That's
they
why I'm
didn't-
asking. I don't know for
they
sure.
didn't push into Dunkirk
'Cause
as
it's
fast
so
because they
it's so
actually
debated,
slowed
yeah.
down. And there's like debate about supply lines. There's debate about Hitler made some kind of stupid call about wanting to take it out from the air or something, or it was Goring. Either way, there's multiple reasons why, and nobody really knows why.
Yeah,
Okay,
and they didn't
fair.
want to and one of the other popular ones is that like they didn't want to risk any of their because they needed them for the invasion force to go across the water. But it's like one of the most debated things about why exactly they didn't do that because it's seen as a friggin'
They could have won the war right there and then.
Yeah, they would. There's a very good chance that the English would have since they had no troops, they would have had to give in. Because at least when you have the troops there, if they make landfall, you can fight in the streets, right?
Yeah, and you can't wait for the colonial forces to come and defend your island. That's going to take forever.
Yeah. So guys, I want to move on to like kind of and we talked about Hans Zimmer. For me, the score is the bow that kind of wraps it. Finishes it off, cherry on top. So let's talk about that. Hans Zimmer. Where does it stand in the pantheon of Hans Zimmer?
It's I don't know. It's
I don't
good.
know.
I'm hard to press. It's hard to pick
He's
like
so
a
good.
favorite Hans Zimmer.
Gladiator still, because it's
Yeah.
my favorite film. His score in that is still my favorite score he's ever done.
Also,
But
this
he's
That's a good one.
brilliant all over the place.
He
so it's
really
hard.
is.
this in 2049 in the same year, too,
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
They're in the same year.
They
Dunkirk and 2049 in the same year.
Mhm.
Wow. Okay.
Nine- tw-
I did not even put-
2017.
I did not even put that together.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Like he's just amazing. Like every single film he scores is just phenomenal.
I want to get his master class.
Yeah. Does he have one?
He has a master.
I
Everyone
think-
has one. I have one. How to be chunky in 5 steps.
I think I do like the score in this one a little bit better than 2049. I think it's a little more what's the word, like classic,
Yeah.
for lack of a better word. It's like not so like the other one's a little more modern.
It hits all
2049.
the Zimmer notes where he has
Exactly.
those little staccato double stops in the violin for tension, and then
the
when you get into
swelling
it, the sweep.
strings.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, like 2049 is more atmospheric, where this is more. It
Electronic.
drives the tension of the movie.
Yeah.
It's almost like the drum beat behind a band, right? It carries that like the beat of the whole movie. It's fantastic and it's really good, but they're very different, obviously. But
When you
this
mentioned
is really
Gladiator,
good.
Gladiators, I forgot how good that was. because
I
Yep.
still play that soundtrack. I mean, I play all these soundtracks realistically because I'm a massive soundtrack nerd. But Gladiator is just
Hans Zimmer
so
soundtracks,
good.
man. I get it. Like they're
He was
listenable.
getting hate from I don't know nerds or something for a while
About
about
what?
something.
About
Maybe
being
just
too
for
good?
being too prolific.
They
I
didn't like.
don't
They
even
didn't like
get
his masterclass.
I don't get it, but like he's so good, and he has a style, but like he's so varied. He doesn't copy himself. Like he brings something new
Yes.
to every project, which is what a master composer.
Here's
should
what I
do.
want to know: who, like, when people are like Hans Zimmer is, blah blah blah, whatever, right? You find most of these opinions on Reddit.
Yeah.
Like, who do you think is better then? Who
John-
do you think?
John Williams.
Yeah, that's what you're looking. That's what you're looking.
That's
at.
what you're looking at.
You're
Realistically,
looking at the guys who you're looking at a
Ennio
guy
Morricone,
who
maybe?
massively enforced. That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
But if
Yeah.
you look at Hans Zimmer, that's what that
he's
combination.
in that
He's
conversation.
got the John.
Yeah.
But those are the two styles.
He's
he
at the big
blends,
boy
right?
table.
Yeah,
He's,
he is.
John's
John. With
notoriously
John.
difficult big boy table.
He is.
John still sits in the kids' table at Thanksgiving.
Every time. That's where all the hot dogs and stuff are.
That's where all the crab dinner is. But like the Ennio Morricone and those John Williams styles, so the John Williams really laying down a main theme and like working it in
Mhm.
to the Ennio Morricone. That's where you get double stops of the violin, little sparse things, little noises, little beats, little hits of auxiliary percussion, like those kind of things. Like that's who you're looking at to do it, and those people were direct influences. I mean, Ennio Morricone. Like realistically, if you look at any composer worth their weight, those two are loom large,
Yeah.
obviously.
And
Yeah.
he's in a privileged position being Hans Zimmer, because there's a lot of younger composers that are making scores for Hollywood films that are being basically ruled over and limited by producers of what they can create. There's a big problem now where every score is just is like a bland redoing of something else. It's Marvel. I mean, there's some YouTube series that does this really well, shows this really well. But basically, there's a bunch of movies where if I told you the movie or if I played you 3 notes, you know exactly what movie we're talking about. And the
Yeah.
great composers do that.
Yeah.
Yes.
But a lot of the modern movies, especially like Marvel Universe, is known for this. They're just they're background noise. You don't know what's the Marvel theme.
What's the
maybe,
Avengers
like,
thing
Yeah,
off the top of your head?
like maybe
I'm not
the
a
Avengers.
Marvel guy. Sorry.
I'm just exactly, but that's the
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, good
There's
call.
but there's
That's it.
so much
There's a-
mediocrity,
It's
and it's
mediocre.
not the composers. These are when you listen to some of the works these guys have made for independent productions, they're brilliant composers.
Yeah.
But it's these huge, massive studios that just don't want them to be original. Don't want to risk, putting their massive universe that they build into like a little box.
They're tension
sound-wise.
averse.
Yeah.
When it comes to music,
Yeah.
like anything that drums up tension and like creates a discomfort, those franchises will shy away from it. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
that's not cool. That's what's brilliant about
Yeah.
Hans Zimmer. That's what's brilliant about John Williams.
Good scores will either enhance the emotions that are happening on screen, or they will add another layer of depth emotionally to that scene as well.
I think
It's either or both, or a variance in over the whole score. But like these other scores I'm talking about, they're just background noise.
I think his best work, Hans Zimmer, is Cool Runnings, in my personal opinion.
He did Cool Runnings.
I'm pulled up his list just now on IMDb. The amount of movies this guy has done and the varieties of them are just
A League of Their
nuts.
Own?
Yeah,
I think that's
A
what
League
the,
of Their
I think that's what the
Own.
hate
Zimmer?
was. Is that he's
Backdraft.
super prolific.
Thelma
which
and
Well,
is
it's
Louise.
Ridley Scott.
right. Twister. This guy did Twister.
That's the best thing about Twister, realistically, is Hans Zimmer.
Yeah,
Jesus.
I mean,
Definitely not the Van Halen notes in the sound.
Yeah.
It was Van Hagar too.
What has Hans Zimmer not done? I think is a
he did
short
Calendar
list.
Girl.
He did the soundtrack for your short film,
Gateway.
your Gateway.
In my dream,
Gateway's gonna be a recurring.
in my
theme.
dreams, he did.
Nimbus, he did the score for Nimbus.
There you go.
Oh my god.
I don't even remember that.
Anyways, guys, we got to get going. Thank you very much.
Oh, he's doing Dune, by the way.
Hans
Is he
Hans
really?
Zimmer's doing Dune. Yeah.
Okay, can
course
I just
he
ask one
is.
question?
Okay. Then we're good. We gotta get here.
Who's doing the score for Top Gun?
Hans Zimmer.
Is he
Kenny,
actually?
Kenny Loggins.
Yeah. Let me see. Let's see.
No, Kenny Loggins makes the 9 Inch Nails type like a move in his career.
Hans Zimmer's doing Top Gun Maverick.
Imagine
Yeah.
if Kenny Loggins.
Wow.
was
Okay, we're so. There's
We're
another reason.
going.
Oh, and he's doing Space Jam 2.
Hans Zimmer.
No,
Is he gonna rap?
He does everything. He does.
So we
everything.
haven't seen his best work yet because Space Jam 2 is
Oh,
still coming
God.
out.
Oh my
So
god.
yeah, hold off on
Featuring Coolio.
Okay, guys. The latest Monstars is gonna be like Migos. It's gonna be like the latest Monstars are gonna be like Migos. Anyways, guys, we got to get out of here. Thank you very much, Lanca, for presenting your favorite film of the 2010s.
Good pick.
Gentlemen, thank you. Audience, thank you for listening. All right, guys, thanks for listening. Just a reminder, if you like this podcast and want to keep hearing it, subscribe and give us a 5-star review. And if you're not already subscribing to our YouTube channel or following us on social media, get on it. You will not regret it.